I am Bedford, a 32-year-old software engineer from Boston. I met Amanda at my college friend's barbecue 3 years ago and we clicked instantly. Our relationship seemed perfect. We shared interests, values, and genuine connection. We spent months planning our dream wedding set for next month. Everything was going smoothly, except for Amanda's occasional temper flares that I brushed off as stress. But one dinner with friends changed everything, forcing me to make the hardest decision of my life. Before I dive into what happened that night, where are you watching from? Hit that like and subscribe button while I gather the courage to relive the moment that forced me to walk away from the woman I thought I would spend forever with. Growing up with divorced parents, I witnessed firsthand how toxic relationships could become. My father left when I was 9, and my mother raised me alone while working 2 jobs. This childhood experience made me extremely cautious about commitment. I saw how my mother struggled after my father abandoned us, and I promised myself I would never rush into a serious relationship without being absolutely certain. I focused on building a stable life first. After graduating from MIT with a computer science degree, I secured a well-paying job at a tech company in downtown Boston. By 30, I had purchased a comfortable home in the suburbs, a 3-bedroom colonial with a spacious backyard where I envisioned someday raising a family. Despite my personal success, relationships remained challenging. I dated several women in my 20s, but always pulled away when things got serious. Friends joked that I had commitment phobia, but they did not understand my deep-seated fear of replicating my parents' failed marriage. Then Amanda walked into my life. It was a sunny July afternoon at my college friend Tyler's annual summer barbecue. She arrived with a mutual acquaintance wearing a blue sundress and carrying homemade potato salad. What struck me first was her confidence. She immediately joined conversations, laughing easily with strangers. Her dark hair fell in natural waves past her shoulders, and her brown eyes sparkled when she smiled. We ended up talking alone on the deck after most guests had left. Our conversation flowed effortlessly from favorite hiking trails to debates about true crime documentaries. She worked as a marketing executive for a local company, loved classic rock music, and volunteered at an animal shelter on weekends. By the time we exchanged numbers, the sun had set and Tyler was cleaning up the yard. Our first official date was at a small cafe near Boston Common. What was planned as a quick coffee stretched into a 4-hour conversation. I appreciated her intelligence, quick wit, and thoughtfulness. She listened attentively when I spoke about my work challenges and offered insightful advice. Unlike previous first dates, I felt no need to perform or impress, just a comfortable authenticity I had never experienced before. We shared a surprising number of interests we both loved. Hiking the New England trails, preferred documentaries to action movies, and enjoyed the same indie bands. Within weeks, we were spending most evenings together, either cooking at my place or trying new restaurants in the city. My friends immediately warmed to her, and even my protective mother gave her enthusiastic approval after their first meeting. 6 months of dating passed before we officially became a couple. Amanda understood my hesitation about labels and never pushed. Instead, she demonstrated consistent reliability that slowly dismantled my walls. When I caught a severe flu, she took time off work to bring homemade soup and medicine to my house. When I nervously presented a new software project to executive leadership, she helped me rehearse for hours. Through these actions, Amanda gradually earned my trust in ways no one else had managed. The moment I knew she was the one happened during our camping trip to the White Mountains. A sudden storm flooded our campsite in the middle of the night. While I panicked about our equipment, Amanda calmly organized our evacuation, somehow maintaining good humor throughout the ordeal. Watching her handle the crisis with such grace made me realize I wanted her steady presence in my life permanently. We complemented each other perfectly. My methodical, sometimes overly cautious approach to life balanced her spontaneity. She pushed me outside my comfort zone, convincing me to try skydiving on her birthday, introducing me to exotic foods I would have never ordered, and encouraging me to reconnect with estranged relatives. In return, I brought stability and thoughtful planning to her. Sometimes chaotic life, helping her establish a retirement account, and teaching her my grandmother's woodworking techniques that became her favorite weekend hobby. After dating for a year, we moved in together. My suburban house became our shared home with Amanda, adding colorful throw pillows, artwork, and plants that transformed my bachelor space into a warm family home. Our daily routines merged seamlessly: morning coffee on the patio, evening walks through the neighborhood, weekend movie marathons. We established traditions like Sunday pancake breakfasts and monthly game nights with friends. Our relationship strengthened as we supported each other's goals. When Amanda competed for a major promotion, I stayed up late helping her prepare presentations. When I decided to expand my woodworking hobby into a small side business, she created a professional website and marketing strategy. We functioned as a team, celebrating each other's victories and providing comfort during setbacks. 2 years into our relationship, I proposed at Tyler's annual barbecue, returning to the exact spot where we first met. I arranged for our families and closest friends to hide inside, emerging with champagne after she said yes. Amanda cried happy tears as I slipped the vintage-style emerald ring on her finger, a design I had secretly worked with a local jeweler to create based on her grandmother's heirloom piece she had once mentioned admiring. She immediately jumped into wedding planning with enthusiasm. We secured a beautiful historic venue for May, a renovated barn with string lights and garden views that perfectly matched our vision. Those first weeks of engagement were pure bliss. I finally believed I had found my lifetime partner, someone who made me feel complete and secure. Looking back, the warning signs were there from the beginning. Amanda occasionally displayed controlling tendencies, rearranging my kitchen without asking, checking my phone when I received texts, making critical comments about certain friends. She would sometimes have disproportionate reactions to minor inconveniences, like the time she refused to speak to me for hours after I was 20 minutes late, picking her up from work due to unexpected traffic. But I dismissed these incidents as occasional stress reactions rather than character patterns. I was too blinded by love to recognize what these behaviors might foreshadow. As wedding preparations intensified, I began noticing concerning changes in Amanda's behavior. Her natural perfectionism transformed into something more obsessive. Every detail required her personal approval, from napkin colors to the exact font on invitation envelopes. What started as excitement about creating our perfect day gradually morphed into a rigid fixation that consumed her thoughts. Our first significant argument erupted over the guest list. My cousin had recently reconciled with his girlfriend after a brief separation, and I wanted to include her name on their invitation. Amanda refused, insisting that on-again, off-again relationships ruined wedding photos. When I pointed out that this might hurt my cousin's feelings, she accused me of caring more about his temporary girlfriend than our special day. The discussion escalated until she stormed out of the room, slamming our bedroom door hard enough to knock a picture frame from the wall. Similar conflicts arose about venue decorations, catering options, and music selections. Amanda rejected the experienced wedding coordinator's suggestions with increasing hostility. Her irritability extended beyond wedding discussions. She snapped at waiters for minor service issues and criticized my work clothes as too casual for my position. When I gently mentioned these mood changes, she blamed pre-wedding stress and assured me everything would return to normal after the ceremony. My attempts to help with planning were often met with snippy comments like, "If you wanted input, you should have been involved months ago, or just let me handle it since you clearly do not care enough." These responses hurt, especially since she had initially rejected my offers to share responsibilities. I found myself walking on eggshells, carefully considering each word before speaking to avoid triggering her anger. The incident with my mother particularly troubled me. Mom had traveled from Chicago to help with centerpiece arrangements, bringing photos from Pinterest and flower suggestions. When she innocently proposed using sunflowers instead of roses, Amanda's eyes flashed with irritation. "This is not your wedding, Carol," she snapped. "Bedford and I decided on roses months ago." The uncomfortable silence that followed made my heart sink as I watched my mother's enthusiasm deflate. Later, I assured Mom that Amanda was just overwhelmed, but the concern in her eyes told me she saw what I was still denying. My first serious alarm bell rang during a budget discussion. Wedding costs had escalated well beyond our initial estimates, and I suggested scaling back some elements to avoid starting our marriage with significant debt. Amanda's reaction was shocking. She threw the planning binder across the living room, narrowly missing our television while shouting that I was ruining everything with my penny-pinching mentality. Seeing her normally controlled demeanor shatter so completely left me speechless. Her immediate transformation afterward was equally disturbing. Within minutes, she was sobbing in my arms, apologizing profusely, and explaining that her parents had been pressuring her about the wedding not being impressive enough. She promised to manage her stress better and suggested we take a weekend away from wedding discussions. The swift change from rage to vulnerability confused me, and I found myself comforting the person who had just displayed alarming aggression. Wanting to be supportive, I took on more planning tasks and suggested hiring additional help. For 2 weeks, things improved noticeably. Amanda seemed more relaxed, even joking about wedding planning mishaps that would have previously triggered outbursts. I convinced myself the worst had passed. Then came the incident at the cake tasting. The bakery had prepared 6 sample flavors, including the chocolate raspberry I had specifically requested. When I expressed preference for this option, Amanda interrupted loudly. "Bedford knows nothing about cake. We will go with the vanilla almond as I originally planned." The baker and 2 assistants froze awkwardly as Amanda continued criticizing my unsophisticated palate in front of these strangers. My face burned with embarrassment as I sat silently unwilling to create further scene. In the car afterward, I calmly explained that while she could choose the cake flavor, publicly diminishing me was unacceptable. She became tearful, blaming lack of sleep and wedding anxiety, promising to respect my feelings more carefully. Her seemingly genuine remorse made me reluctant to press the issue further. That night, she ordered my favorite takeout and suggested watching my preferred movie gestures that felt like apologies without directly addressing the concerning behavior pattern. My best friend Jackson pulled me aside after a group dinner to express concerns about Amanda's treatment of me. "She talks over you constantly," he observed. "And did you notice how she ordered your meal without asking what you wanted?" When I defended these actions as harmless quirks, Jackson shook his head. "Just be sure this is really what you want for the next 50 years, man." I dismissed his worries as overprotectiveness, but his words lingered uncomfortably in my thoughts. As wedding expenses mounted, financial strain began affecting other aspects of our lives. We canceled our planned summer vacation, postponed, replacing my aging car, and argued about household purchases previously considered routine. Amanda's family, wealthy business owners from Connecticut, added pressure by questioning why we had not chosen a more prestigious venue or hired their preferred high-end caterer. Her desire to impress them clashed with our actual budget, creating tension neither of us handled well. Despite these challenges, I remained committed to making our relationship work. I reminded myself that all couples faced pre-wedding stress, and once the ceremony was behind us, we could return to the harmonious partnership we had enjoyed before. When Amanda seemed her old self again during her final dress, fitting excitedly showing me photos while keeping the actual gown a surprise, my optimism returned. She suggested celebrating 1 month until our wedding day with dinner, alongside our closest friends Tyler and his wife Sarah and Jackson with his girlfriend Zoe. I eagerly accepted, hopeful this represented a turning point in our pre-wedding tension. The fateful dinner took place at Lucia's, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown where we had celebrated our first anniversary. The elegant setting featured dark wood paneling, crisp white tablecloths, and soft classical music, creating an intimate atmosphere. Amanda looked stunning in a burgundy dress, her hair styled in loose curls, seemingly relaxed for the first time in weeks. Our friends arrived promptly at 7, all dressed for the special occasion. The evening began wonderfully. Cocktails loosened conversation and laughter flowed as we reminisced about our college days and how our relationships had evolved. Tyler teased me about my notorious indecisiveness when ordering food, while Sarah shared embarrassing stories about Amanda's first attempts at paddleboarding during our group lake vacation. The appetizers were delicious, the wine perfectly paired with our entrees, and for 2 blissful hours wedding stress seemed forgotten as we simply enjoyed each other's company. Trouble began innocuously during dessert when the conversation shifted to long-term family planning. Tyler and Sarah had recently started trying for their first child, naturally leading to questions about our own timeline for having kids. I casually mentioned wanting to wait at least 2 years after marriage, allowing us to enjoy newlywed life and advance our careers before starting a family. This had been our agreed plan during previous private discussions, so I was unprepared for Amanda's reaction. Actually, she interjected with a tight smile. We have been reconsidering that timeline. My gynecologist mentioned that fertility declines significantly after 35, so waiting too long might not be wise. Her statement surprised me since we had never revisited this topic, and at 31, Amanda had several years before reaching that threshold. Sensing my confusion, Jackson attempted to lighten the mood. No rush, you two. Get some practice being responsible first. Maybe start with a plant, then a dog, then consider tiny humans. His joke earned chuckles from everyone, except Amanda, whose fingers tightened around her wine glass. I think we should acknowledge biological realities, she continued, voice slightly elevated. Besides, Bedford's company has excellent parental leave benefits that would be foolish not to utilize sooner rather than later. Uncomfortable with having this private discussion in public, I gently suggested, maybe we should talk more about this at home, sweetheart. There are many factors to consider. Sarah, unaware of the building tension, innocently added, Bedford's right, you guys should take your time. The first years of marriage are precious before kids enter the picture. We wish we had traveled more before getting tied down with house renovations and career changes. Amanda's face flushed as she shot back. Well, everyone has different priorities. Some people actually look forward to building a family rather than extended adolescence. The table fell awkwardly silent. Attempting to diffuse tension, I placed my hand lightly on Amanda's arm and whispered, Everything okay? You seem upset. What happened next plays in slow motion whenever I recall that evening. Amanda's eyes darkened as she jerked her arm away. In a voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear, she snapped, Stop trying to manage me in front of our friends. You always do this. Undermine me when I express my feelings. Stunned by this accusation, I responded quietly. That was not my intention at all. I just thought, you thought what, that you know better than me that your career matters more than my biological clock, that your opinions should override mine. Each question increased in volume until heads turned throughout the restaurant. Amanda, please, I whispered, acutely aware of the attention we were attracting. Let's discuss this privately later. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. There you go again. Silencing me because you are embarrassed by my emotions. Classic Bedford move, avoid conflict at all costs. Our friends sat frozen eyes downcast while neighboring diners pretended not to notice the unfolding scene. The waiter approaching with coffee refills quickly retreated. My heart pounded with a mixture of confusion and humiliation as I tried one last attempt at de-escalation. I love you, I said softly, reaching for her hand. Whatever you are feeling right now, we can work through it together. Just not here, please. The slap came without warning, her right hand connecting with my left cheek with such force that my head snapped sideways. The sound cracked through the restaurant like a gunshot, followed by complete silence. The stinging pain was immediate, but the emotional shock hit harder. In our 3 years together, despite heated arguments, physical violence had never entered our relationship. Time seemed suspended as I slowly raised my hand to my burning cheek. Sarah gasped audibly, while Tyler half rose from his chair, unsure whether to intervene. Jackson stared in open-mouthed shock. Most devastating was Amanda's expression, momentary satisfaction quickly replaced by horror as she realized what she had done. Bedford, I did not mean, she began, reaching toward me. Without a word, I placed my napkin on the table, stood calmly, and walked out of the restaurant. Behind me, I heard Amanda calling my name, but I continued walking to my car. Once inside, I sat motionless for several minutes, trying to process what had just occurred. My phone began buzzing with texts and calls from Amanda, which I ignored as I drove aimlessly around Boston for hours. When I finally returned home after midnight, Amanda was waiting in the living room, eyes swollen from crying. She immediately launched into desperate apologies, blaming stress, the 2 glasses of wine, momentary insanity, anything but accepting responsibility for choosing violence. She knelt before me, sobbing that she would never forgive herself, begging for another chance. Looking at her tear-stained face, I realized something fundamental had changed. The woman I had trusted completely had broken a core boundary, and no explanation could erase that violation. I could not imagine standing at the altar with someone who had struck me in anger. What would happen during future conflicts? Would the threshold for physical reaction lower each time? These questions kept me awake all night in the spare bedroom where I retreated despite her pleas to talk further. Morning brought clarity rather than doubt. Over coffee, I calmly explained that I needed space to process what had happened. Her panic escalated immediately at my suggestion of postponing the wedding. "We cannot postpone. Invitations are sent, deposits are paid. My family has booked international flights." Her priorities were painfully evident. The event mattered more than addressing the serious breach of trust between us. After careful consideration, I made the painful decision to call off the wedding entirely. When I informed Amanda, her reaction cycled rapidly between begging, promising therapy, and anger management classes, and accusing me of abandoning her when she needed understanding. One mistake should not erase 3 years of love, she argued, tears streaming down her face. Everyone deserves forgiveness. This is not about forgiveness, I explained gently but firmly. This is about recognizing a fundamental incompatibility. Physical aggression crosses a non-negotiable boundary for me. I cannot build a life with someone knowing that violence is a possible response to disagreement. Within hours, I packed essential items and moved temporarily to Jackson's apartment, arranging for Amanda to have time to collect her belongings from our home. The following days brought painful tasks, canceling vendors, returning wedding gifts, and informing guests. Most understood my decision, though. Amanda's family launched a campaign of guilt and pressure. Her father called repeatedly, offering to pay for couples counseling and anger management, insisting one minor incident should not derail our future. Despite the emotional turmoil and financial loss, my resolve never wavered. Some lines once crossed permanently alter the landscape of a relationship. This was mine. The weeks following our separation were a confusing mixture of grief and unexpected relief. I mourned the future we had planned together while simultaneously feeling as though I had escaped a situation that could have grown increasingly dangerous. The pain came in waves, hitting hardest when I found Amanda's forgotten earring in the bathroom drawer or received automated emails about honeymoon preparations we had arranged months earlier. Amanda's attempts to win me back began immediately and intensified as the reality of our separation sank in. First came daily flower deliveries with handwritten apology notes, which I acknowledged with brief, polite texts maintaining my boundary. When this approach failed, she escalated to sending lengthy emails, analyzing our relationship and promising profound personal changes. "I have scheduled weekly therapy sessions," one message read. "Please give me 6 months to prove I can be the partner you deserve." When direct appeals brought no reconciliation, her strategy shifted dramatically. Amanda began crafting a public narrative on social media, portraying herself as the heartbroken victim of an unforgiving partner. Sometimes one mistake costs you everything, she posted, alongside a tearful selfie that garnered hundreds of sympathetic comments. Mutual friends forwarded screenshots of longer posts detailing how I had abandoned her over one emotional outburst after years of devotion. This public campaign created uncomfortable division among our social circle. Several acquaintances suggested I was being unnecessarily harsh, arguing that everyone deserves second chances. "Marriage is about working through tough times," one friend lectured during an awkward lunch. "She made one mistake during extreme stress. Is your pride worth throwing away your entire relationship?" These comments stung particularly because they revealed how successfully Amanda had minimized her actions. A slap was not merely an emotional outburst but physical assault, something I would never tolerate from anyone regardless of our history. Rather than engaging in public debate or sharing private details to defend my decision, I maintained dignified silence, speaking openly only with my closest friends and family who understood the gravity of what had occurred. 3 weeks after our separation, Amanda appeared unannounced at Jackson's apartment at 11 p.m., clearly intoxicated. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks as she alternated between pleading for another chance and accusing me of throwing away perfect love over nothing. Jackson stood uncomfortably in the hallway as I firmly but compassionately explained that these uninvited visits needed to stop. If you continue showing up unannounced, I will have no choice but to seek a restraining order, I stated calmly. I have asked repeatedly for space, and these boundaries need to be respected. Her expression transformed instantly from sorrow to rage. A restraining order. Are you serious? After everything I have done for you, you would not even have your promotion without my help preparing for that interview. She proceeded to list sacrifices she had made during our relationship, framing our entire history as a series of her contributions that I was now ungratefully discarding. This dramatic shift from contrition to accusation reinforced my decision. The emotional manipulation rapidly toggling between victim and attacker revealed patterns I had previously missed or excused. Standing firm despite her tears and recriminations was difficult but necessary for my long-term well-being. Weekly therapy sessions became crucial to my healing process. My therapist helped me recognize subtle forms of emotional control that had characterized our relationship. Amanda's habit of withdrawing affection when displeased, criticizing my friends until I saw them less frequently making negative comments about my appearance that eroded my confidence. These behaviors had gradually isolated me from my support system while increasing my dependence on her approval classic precursors to more overt abuse. Following my therapist's advice, I documented all interactions with Amanda, saving texts, emails, and recording dates of unexpected visits. This documentation served dual purposes, protecting me legally if her behavior escalated further and providing concrete evidence when my resolve weakened during lonely moments. Reconnecting with friends I had neglected during my relationship became an essential part of rebuilding my life. Weekly basketball games with college buddies, hiking trips with my cousin, and dinner with coworkers gradually expanded my social world beyond the bubble Amanda and I had created. These friends expressed relief at having the old Bedford back, someone who made decisions independently and spoke his mind without constantly checking his phone for approval. Immersing myself in work provided healthy distraction during difficult days. I took on challenging new projects, mentored junior developers, and finally accepted the international assignment I had previously declined because Amanda disliked the idea of long-distance separation. My woodworking hobby, which had taken back seat during wedding planning, once again filled weekend hours with creative satisfaction as I completed furniture pieces for my refreshed home environment. As our original wedding date approached, Amanda's attempts at reconciliation grew increasingly desperate. She sent an elaborate photo album documenting our relationship with annotations about how each memory could still represent our future. Her mother called my mother, proposing family intervention to save true love. Amanda even contacted my company's HR department about relationship counseling coverage under our insurance plan, an uncomfortable boundary violation that necessitated a formal email requesting professional distance. The weekend that should have been our wedding, I deliberately planned a solo hiking trip to the White Mountains, the location where I had once realized I wanted to marry her. Climbing the challenging trail alone, I reflected on how different my life path had become from what I had envisioned just months earlier. Standing at the summit overlooking vast wilderness, I experienced surprising peace rather than anticipated grief. The decision that had felt devastating now seemed like necessary self-preservation. Upon returning from this trip, I discovered Amanda had finally removed her remaining belongings from our shared home, leaving her key and a simple note: "I will always love you, but I am finally accepting your decision. Be happy, Bedford." This straightforward acknowledgement without emotional manipulation marked the first communication that felt genuinely respectful of my boundaries. Reclaiming my home became a symbolic fresh start. I rearranged furniture, repainted walls from the beige Amanda had preferred to a calming blue, and replaced our matching dishware with a mismatched collection that better suited my casual, entertaining style. Each change represented reclaiming personal preferences I had compromised without realizing how much I had surrendered. 6 months after our separation, several friends who had initially questioned my decision approached with apologies. We did not see what was happening, Tyler admitted during a poker night. Looking back, there were so many red flags we missed. How she controlled conversations, isolated you from activities you enjoyed, criticized you in subtle ways. We should have said something sooner. When I cautiously began dating again, I approached relationships with greater awareness of both my boundaries and potential warning signs. My first dinner with Kayla, a graphic designer, I met through a work project, highlighted how my standards had evolved. When she respectfully disagreed with my opinion about a film without making it personal or demeaning, I recognized this basic courtesy as the essential foundation that had been missing with Amanda. The most unexpected closure came 8 months after our breakup, when I encountered Amanda at the local grocery store. The momentary panic quickly subsided as she approached with calm composure I had rarely witnessed during our relationship. "You look well," she said simply, no accusation or pleading in her voice. "Thank you." "You too," I replied, noticing she seemed more centered than during our final interactions. She shared that she had continued therapy and joined an anger management program, acknowledging these supports should have been in place long before our relationship deteriorated. "I wanted you to know that even though losing you was painful, it forced me to address issues I had been avoiding my entire adult life. For that I am grateful." This brief, dignified exchange provided unexpected healing for both of us. While I felt compassion for her journey, I also experienced renewed certainty about my decision. Some relationships, despite their meaningful moments, are ultimately stepping stones to becoming our better selves rather than our final destination. 1 year after calling off my wedding, I can honestly say that what initially felt like the greatest failure of my life became my most significant growth opportunity. That painful experience fundamentally changed my understanding of relationships and self-respect in ways I never anticipated. The most valuable lesson came through recognizing early warning signs I had previously dismissed. When someone shows controlling tendencies, emotional volatility, or inability to respect boundaries during minor disagreements, these behaviors typically escalate rather than improve under the increased pressure of marriage. Red flags appear subtly at first. A harsh comment dismissed as having a bad day, a broken object during an argument attributed to clumsiness rather than anger, criticism framed as helpful suggestions. Each incident viewed in isolation seems manageable, but together they form a pattern that predicts future behavior. Through extensive reading and therapy sessions, I learned about the cycle of abuse, how tension builds, explodes into incident, then melts into remorseful reconciliation before beginning again. This knowledge helped me understand why Amanda's tearful apologies and temporary improvements never created lasting change. Without professional intervention addressing root causes, these cycles inevitably repeat with shortening periods between incidents. Perhaps most importantly, I developed clear understanding of my non-negotiable boundaries. Physical safety represents my absolute minimum requirement in any relationship, but emotional safety matters equally. A partner who uses intimidation, public humiliation, or manipulation is not someone with whom I can build a healthy life regardless of our compatibility in other areas. Sometimes love and compatibility are not enough when fundamental respect is missing. The gratitude I now feel for avoiding a potentially abusive marriage outweighs any lingering sadness about what might have been. While wedding cancellation brought temporary embarrassment and financial loss, those consequences pale compared to years spent in an unhealthy relationship or complicated divorce involving shared property and possibly children. Sometimes the bravest decision is walking away despite social pressure to persevere. This perspective helped tremendously when I began dating Madison 6 months ago. Unlike my cautious approach with Amanda, I established clear expectations, early communicating my boundaries and deal breakers during our 4th date. Madison appreciated this honesty, sharing her own non-negotiables developed through previous relationship experiences. This foundation of mutual respect makes our disagreements constructive rather than destructive. We address issues directly without personal attacks or power struggles. Most striking is the difference in conflict resolution. Last month, Madison and I strongly disagreed about holiday plans with our respective families. Instead of escalating tensions, we took a 30-minute break to collect our thoughts, then calmly discussed options until finding compromise that respected both our needs. No raised voices, no emotional manipulation, no lingering resentment, just two adults working together toward mutual solution. This healthy conflict reinforced that I had made the right decision, as I never experienced such balanced resolution with Amanda, despite years together. Friends frequently comment on my increased confidence and clarity. "You stand taller now," Jackson observed recently, "like you finally know exactly what you want and deserve." This self-assurance comes from learning to trust my instincts rather than dismissing uncomfortable feelings about someone's behavior. When something feels wrong in a relationship, that intuition usually warrants attention rather than rationalization. Occasionally, I wonder about Amanda's journey. Mutual friends report she continued therapy and recently started dating someone new. I sincerely hope she has addressed her underlying issues and found healthier relationship patterns. Despite everything that happened, I want her to find happiness with someone compatible with her authentic self. Our time together served important purpose in both our lives, even if that purpose was preparing us for different futures than we had imagined. I have no regrets about my difficult decision despite ongoing healing. Some days still bring unexpected reminders. A song that played during our first dance passing the restaurant where I proposed. But these moments now bring reflective appreciation rather than painful longing. These experiences shaped me into someone stronger, wiser, and more self-aware than before. The deepest lesson I learned is that love must always include respect for boundaries, autonomy, and basic humanity. Without respect as foundation, even the most passionate love becomes destructive rather than nurturing. Sometimes walking away from wrong relationship is greatest act of self-love possible. For anyone watching who might be questioning red flags in their own relationship, remember that you deserve a partner who treats you with consistent respect even during disagreements. Love should feel safe, not frightening, supportive, not diminishing. Trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, they are usually trying to protect you from future pain. Have you ever had to make difficult decisions that initially seemed devastating but ultimately led to better life? Share your experience in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Thank you for listening to my journey from heartbreak to healing. Remember that sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most meaningful growth. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.